get back up when we fall. We'll try again.
I mean, you had 3 adventures, so congratulations on the Triple Crown.
Thank you.
But you had quite the adventures. I mean, it was a roller coaster, it seemed like.
It really was for that 2.5 to 3 years. I counted up. I moved 14 times in that time frame. So it was like, I own a house in Baltimore, so then I was renting that out and had a couple weeks before I started the trail. So then it's kind of moving out of the house and to on the trail, and then at mom's basement for a couple weeks, and then a sublet for a couple weeks, then a house, and then out of that house into my house as I got rented again, and rinse and repeat for 3 more trails. So it got hectic and just kind of nonstop moving. So Sea Lion, or Nandi from your guest from a couple weeks ago, and I are very happy to be somewhat stationary for more than 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, there's a entertainment value, there's a whatever to being on the move and that kind of thing, but it can get old really fast.
Yeah, definitely.
But one of the things that I loved about, because I looked at your Instagram and I looked at your YouTube channel, and it was so funny to me. Like, okay, yes, it was a Triple Crown. It was 7,000 and whatever miles and all of that. But it really seemed to be your search for things that you could either climb or jump off of into the water.
Yeah, you got me there. Those are definitely two of my favorite things to do. If you have the right setting, you don't really need any equipment. I like rock climbing, but I'm not going to haul climbing shoes and a harness and ropes and stuff on the trail. I've since gotten into mountain biking, same deal, not bike packing and all the extra tools and stuff you need to carry. So when I could get any little break from the grueling and repetitiveness of just walking, I definitely tried to take it.
Yeah, it was. Again, like watching your videos and seeing the stuff that you were jumping off of into the water, I was just like, bridges, rocks, trees or branches stuck out, swings. Yeah, it was everything. And some of those were not the warmest pools of water either.
Right. Guess, did you see, that's one of my very proud things on the CDT, the dozen dip challenge?
I did not see all of that.
Okay,
no.
So I'm sure you know on the AT, there's all these challenges, the half-gallon challenge, the 4-state challenge, this and that. And, there's just a whole community that comes along with that. And on the CDT, there's really just nothing similar. So going through the Wind River Range in Wyoming, there's an alternate route called the Cirque of the Towers, which I think pretty much everyone takes because the cliffs and rock formations are just out of this world. But I noticed the trail goes right past a lot of lakes. And on previous times, I would try to do a triple dip and see if I can swim in 3 lakes in a day. So I was starting off with that. I was kind of set up to be doing the entire alternate route. I think it's about 12 to 13 miles all in a day. So I was thinking, all right, I'll do 3 of these swims in a day. And then I realized that there's maybe 10 lakes. So I said, all right, maybe I'll do 10 of the lakes, and trying to just make a catchy title like Deca Dip or something and configure it. But then I realized if I took like an alt route on the alt route, I could hit another 2 lakes and make it a dozen. So that was kind of set. And some of those were extremely cold, but I swam in all 12 lakes in a single day. So to any future aspiring CDT hikers out there, I encourage you to do the dozen dip challenge and swim in every lake on the Cirque of the Towers alt route in the Wind River Range. Get it done.
Take your it.
Yep.
So you did the alt route, and then what was the additional alt route that you did?
It was just another path, so you could hit Clear Lake and Deep Lake.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that's really amazing on the CDT is if you get the Lay alternate routes. This hiker, Jonathan Lay, just been keeping his PDF copies. So one is good to have as a backup in case your GPS dies or anything like that, because pretty much everyone uses hooks now. but he has tons and tons and tons of all these alternate routes that just go all over the place. There's one, just slightly off trail is a pit that Native Americans used to herd bison in. So they'd fall in the pit and were easy to kill. There's just a pit full of bison bones. Tons of just like other peaks to hit, lakes, old mining ruins, like really just endless stuff. So definitely make sure to get those maps and check out any alt route you feel like the whole purist mentality that exists more on the AT just does not exist on the CDT. It's just hike your own hike, go wherever you want, check it all out.
Now, what were those maps again?
Jonathan Lay, Ley.
Okay.
You just Google Lay or CDT Lay maps, you'll pretty much find them.
Perfect. And I mean, I think that's the one of the things that separates the CDT from the other trails is that it's all about the alternate, sort of like you can go one way or the other, and there's, or at least I haven't heard that there's any shame about going one way versus the other because they're equally part of the CDT.
Yeah, that's what I gather too. There's just go whichever way you want, and not a single person is going to try to say like, oh, you're not a through hiker, or like you took the easy route, or whatever it may be.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because when you were talking about the alternates that Jonathan was mentioning in his maps, the thing that went through my head was, so you can do the through hike, and then you can also do a tour of these sites that, that he's mentioning on his maps. Yeah.
Definitely a way to look at it is like side quests, kind of.
Exactly. Get all D&D. What set you on this path to begin with?
It's kind of a long story, but I guess I'll hop back to the start. So I started playing rugby in college and then joined a senior men's team, or like a men's club after college. And the Rugby World Cup was being hosted in New Zealand in 2011. And I had just bought my house, so I did not have money to fly around the world and go to that. And then for the next year or two, all my teammates that went just kept talking about how amazing New Zealand was and how beautiful it was, and the hiking was crazy, and there's just so much stuff to do. So I kind of started getting my head, all right, now that I've had my house and I've replenished my funds, and I think I want to go to New Zealand. And I was ready to just blow all my vacation, go by myself, hitchhike around, do the organic farm volunteering stuff, or stay at hostels. And there's a really big backpacking scene there. And then as I was kind of planning, one of my friends, Sam, was like, hey, I'm going to be in between jobs, so I think I'm going to come to New Zealand with you. Sweet. Come on, man. You're invited. And he said, let's get motorcycles and just ride motorcycles all over the country. That sounds awesome. Let's do that. So we started planning more, and my other good friend, Nick, realized he wanted to join. So he hopped on kind of last minute. And then even more last minute, my brother and his girlfriend, Ann, decided to join us, but they had a car. So they kind of did their thing. We meet up every couple days or so. But that was really my first taste of this kind of dirtbag, nomadic, hiker trash lifestyle, where I may have had a motorcycle and a little more luxuries, but I still a couple times went a couple days without seeing people. You don't really know where you're going to sleep that night or where your next meal is going to come from. And a lot of the back roads we were on, you were just in it. And you couldn't just call AAA for help or anything. If your bike broke, you had to fix it. If something crashed, if you got hurt, you had to get yourself out of there. So that's what first kind of put the wanderlust in me, or got bit by the travel bug, whatever you want to call it. And then right when I got home from that, a couple months later, so that was 2013-14, my good friend Carrot, rugby nickname Carrot, real name Eric, trail name Pigpen,
God,
girlfriend Blocks, we're doing the Pacific Crest Trail. And I had never heard about through hiking before this. So he went off and did that, and following along on Snapchat and seeing his adventures kind of piqued my interest. And then what really kind of hit it home for me was when we talked about finances when he got home. And I spent more on a 5-week trip to New Zealand than he did on a 5-month hike. So that's what I kind of realized. It's a similar experience, but one really maximizes the amount of time you can stretch your dollars out. So that's what kind of started me in backpacking. And then fell down the rabbit hole that every new backpacker goes down with gear and endless searching about, hammock or tent, lighter or not lighter. Is it worth another $300 just to shave an ounce? And doing all that endless research. So that's when I really got into backpacking, and then went with blocks and Pigpen to do the Wonderland Trail in 2016. And that was kind of my final test. If I can do 100 miles, if I really like it and I survive and everything, if I feel like I can do that 20 times in a row, that's essentially the Appalachian Trail. So everything went great. And 2017 is when I kicked off my 3-year Triple Crown extravaganza and loved every second of it.
Now, did you picked a hammock, right? Like that became
that was my go-to. Yeah, hammocks, whole thing on the AT, and then the PCT I did with Sea Lion. So it just made a lot more sense to share a tent. You could split the weight, and the campsites and availability. It just was kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. And then the CDT, I hammocked the entire thing except for New Mexico, because it started to get back in that terrain where you'd have to really plan your days and camp only at certain spots where there are trees, and didn't really want to deal with that. So I just switched to a tent, and I was a ground peasant again, as we call it.
A ground peasant. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, everybody that I've talked to who does hammock has complimentary things to say about it, basically. Like everybody becomes a diehard about it.
Yeah, I was there more of just kind of a friendly goading and jesting, making fun of friends, like calling them ground peasants and stuff. I think definitely varies by terrain. On the AT, there's never a shortage of trees. You're fine in a hammock. But, obviously in the desert, it completely flips, and tent is the way to go.
Yeah. Though in my head, I could picture you tying your hammock up to 2 cactus and down in the desert. Grant you, it probably wouldn't stay, or something drastic would happen, but the image was fun.
Yeah, I did have there's a stretch in Wyoming, the Great Basin, that's very treeless, and I did have to sleep on the ground one night. But other than that, I managed to always find a bridge to kind of questionably tie my hammock around, or one time was a cow pen built to keep the cows out of the electronics that powered the well. So I made it work, but it was, at times tricky, and one time just had to sleep in the dirt.
So when you're using the cow pen or the bridge, I take it it's tree on one side and then whatever you're finding on the other?
Oh, I have done that other times, like to a fence in a tree. The cow pen was shaped kind of like a diamond, and it was just long enough for my hammock in between. And the bridge was questionable because, so in hammocks, you normally have your feet side anchored higher than your head side. So when you lay in it, just the way mechanics kind of work out, it's the flattest lay, as they call it. But on the bridge, hanging off the side of the guardrail, the points were equal. And the only lower point I could find was this concrete block that was the footer of the bridge. So trying to hang the hammock on a corner of concrete, if it just slipped off, I would have fallen 3 or 4 feet onto some rocks. So I had a lot of kind of testing with that, and my friend Merlin was camping with me that night, so he kind of helped me like situate it and just kind of make sure it was somewhat safe.
Where was it often that you were concerned about the hanging of it, that the trees would be strong enough for
it was pretty rare. There's a few nights I had to hike a little bit further to find suitable trees. Like you said, sometimes they're just a little too skinny, or there's a dead tree hanging a little too awkwardly nearby or something like that. But for the most part, there's always trees around, or fences, or something you can kind of cobble together a solution.
You have to be a little bit of a MacGyver.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess, and speaking of MacGyvering things, I have to admit, I only watched the very beginning of your foot surgery video. Because Sea Lion mentioned her feet in her podcast and how bad it was. But I guess at that moment, I did not realize that you actually had documented how bad it was. But when I started to watch it, I was like, how do you, I mean, I guess you have to do it, but it's gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it looks like I was going to try to share my screen so I could pull it up really quick, but not working out. But yeah, it was, that was fun. Yeah, I listened to her podcast with you, of course, and yeah, you touched on it for a little bit, and it's funny. In the video, the one Australian that was with us saw me as I was peeling back this blister about that big, just flap of skin, and he was just like, "Oh no!"
Yes. Well, and it hurts too. I mean, it's not like it's just the skin and you cut it off and you go about your business, but there's some pain involved.
Yeah, I have like freakish feet. I actually only had one blister on the entire Triple Crown, so I can only try to imagine what Sea Lion was going through when half of her entire foot on each foot, half of it was a blister of some sort. So one, just dealing with the blister, then two, dealing with the very sensitive fresh skin underneath after I cut away the blister and cleaned them out. And you know, she's definitely a trooper. She made the next section to up to Idlewild from there, and luckily got another couple days to kind of recuperate and get ready to hit the trail again.
When you decided to do the PCT and Sea Lion was going to come with you, how did that change the way that you hiked it or that you wanted to hike it?
What made me go off to a tent right away. I was going to try to hammock the PCT because I was convinced it was the best thing. But it was a little bit of a surprise, you know, just because I knew she really hasn't been much into hiking and backpacking. Well, you know, like day hikes and stuff, but not anything crazy like a through hike. But I knew she was really tough, and you know, I was like, thought we have a few months to try to get you ready. So I'd always try to fill her in on gear and everything I've learned from the AT and what's, you know, worth spending a little extra to shave the weight and what's not. And then she luckily got placed in the Badger sponsorship with the Trek. So she got a lot of gear off the bat, which was definitely a huge help. And then we did one test hike for a stretch on the AT, and she just said she was ready. So we decided to hit the trail, and we both agreed, you know, if one of us gets hurt or if one of us wants to quit, that does not mean the other one has to quit, you know. I think she touched on that on her episode as well, because, you know, it's a lot to give up to go do a through hike. You know, you have to quit your job, you have to put all your stuff in storage, you usually wind up getting rid of a lot of stuff, have someone take care of your car, get bills sorted, and just, it's an endless list. So you know, for her to give all that up to come hike, and for me to give all that up, we both thought, you know, just if one of us quits or can't finish, that does not mean the other has to go back to Maryland. But we both made it, and it was great. You know, really every step of the way, it was great to have her by my side, my partner in crime, and it's also nice having someone to split camp chores with, for sure.
On the other trails, did you hike with a tramley for most of them?
Yes and no. On the AT, being very social, I met up with the One Trail family for pretty much the southern half. We stayed together a good bit. And then going through Maryland, being my home state, I hopped off trail for like a vacation. So they mostly all went ahead. By the time I got back on 5 days later, you know, it's a big gap to make up. But I did catch up to White and Trail Mix, and almost caught Boundaries and Dapper Dan, but they finished a couple days ahead. And then the PCT, I was a Sea Lion the whole way, and we met up with the trail family around mile 350, I think, and stayed with them till the end, which was great. And then the CDT had a couple small trail families, but it was really kind of weird being such a heavy snow year in 1819. Almost everybody going northbound flipped when they hit the San Juan mountain range because it was just unpassable. So everyone basically hiking Mexico flipped up to Glacier right when I was starting as a regular southbound. So one, that made permits a nightmare, but two, everyone was kind of already in their own little bubbles and trail families and cliques, and I was just showing up like the new kid. And then my pace was also a little different because I had 2 weddings I was going to hop off trail for. So trying to just make that window before the San Juans got snowed in the following winter, while they were like, I got, 80% of the trail to go. New Mexico's already done. We can slow down. And I was trying to keep my miles up. So didn't really ever have a true trail family for more than a section or 2 on the PCT or on the CDT.
How did that change your hike? Not having the people around you so much, or not interacting with the people like that.
It mentally made it a lot tougher. I've always been pretty independent. Just in general, through hiking, backpacking, like you're pretty much carrying all your own stuff. You have your own food, your own kitchen, your own tent, everything. But even when I was with trail family, I was always kind of independent. Like I wouldn't like split camp chores as much. Offer to get water for people. It wasn't like a default thing to be, all right, we're all going to camp here. You set the tents, you get water, you start a fire, go, go, go. So on that part, it wasn't too much different, but the solitude, there's a few stretches that got to me, because in between my 2 weddings, I did a northbound flip-flop through Colorado so I could be sure to get the San Juans done. So in doing that, I was with a lot of the snowbows, as they got called, because they flipped up from the snow. So all those flip-floppers, but they kept going south, and then I flipped and started going north. So I was just going against the grain and passing everybody I met in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. And then after they got through, when I was in northern Colorado, it was just nobody. There was a few stretches I went 4 days without seeing a human, and some of that kind of was like the Shining, like all work no play makes me go crazy, just talking to myself. Or like Castaway, just painting a face on a coconut I found or whatever. Yeah, it didn't get that bad, but that was definitely the more challenging part on the CDT, was being alone. And then also I was Seela and I got engaged right before I started this trail, and since we started dating, we dated for a few months, we did the PCT together, then we lived in Colorado for a whole winter, and then she was no longer by my side. So those 2 things together really, really made it a mentally tough trail.
How did you get through that, or what were your hacks to do that, to get through it successfully?
Just really grinding away. I think one thing, look at the path in front of you, not the mountain you're going to, because, when she first dropped me off in Glacier and left, just if I would think, all right, all I have to do is hike almost 3,000 miles and then I'll be done with this trail and we'll be together again. Wow, that's a tall order, but thinking, okay, it's just a week hike to get through Glacier, and then I'll have cell service again. I'll be able to talk. It was also nice having those 2 weddings to get off trail for, because she met up with me. So it was like 2 mini breaks to get to see her again. And I think overall that was kind of my biggest piece of advice, is just take it section by section. Don't have that end goal in mind.
It feels like a little bit you lucked into the sectioning of it all, because that wasn't necessarily something that you had planned ahead of time, and or that you knew you would have that much alone time. Is that fair?
Yeah. You mean like the sectioning of the breaks to go home for the weddings, or?
Well, you knew that you were going to be going home for the weddings, but I don't think that you realized before you headed out on the trail that there would be so much alone time. Or were you you knew that was
coming? It was like a switcheroo. At first, I was really expecting it. And it's something I wrote a little bit about, just because the other 2 trails are known for being almost overcrowded, to the point of overcrowded. But they're very, very social. You can kind of hike alone, but you'll never go a day by yourself. You'll always see other hikers. And the CDT is more notorious for there just not being that many people, and it goes through much more remote parts. So I was kind of thinking that and trying to mentally prepare for that. And then with all the people that flipped up north, it just seemed like the PCT or AT, I'm just surrounded by hikers all the time again. So it was great. And I kind of let that mental preparedness just melt away because I didn't need it. And then when I did my flip and then took all this time off trail, I felt like I was just going to be the very last southbounder left. And when I got back on in northern New Mexico, there's some stretches I was just not feeling the trail at all. I'm not seeing hikers. Even towns were like, oh, wow, hikers are still coming through. Well, like, we used to have a hostel, but they closed up, or this place used to have a hot tub and a beer on tap and all this great stuff. But now you can sleep in their backyard, this and that. But I did manage to catch a couple other southbounders on like southern New Mexico, and we all finished on December 3rd. And I think pretty sure we're the last ones to finish that season. So that was cool. But like I said, yeah, I was kind of like prepared to be alone, not prepared.
And it is what it is.
Yep. Just gotta keep on hiking.
Having done the other two trails, and at that point you've got, what is it, 4,500 miles under your belt. So you've kind of seen yourself in all of these different experiences with hiking. Did that help you when you hit the CDT and you're like, okay, yeah, I know. Okay, this is a bad weather day? Because I saw some of your bad weather days, and they were kind of epic. Between snow, between hail, between rain.
Yeah, the other trails definitely help prepare for that. Mostly the AT, because you get rain. There's no way to avoid it. The PCT, we hiked on a year when it was on easy mode because the 17-18 winter had very, very, very low snow. So the Sierras were a piece of cake to get through. Didn't need an ice axe or crampons or microspikes or anything. So I kind of missed out from a training perspective on that. But then when I got to Glacier, it was the same. There was a few snow crossings. Didn't really ever need microspikes. Luckily, I didn't carry an ice axe because it would have just been completely dead weight. But the weather definitely, just kind of being prepared for that. Like, it rains. You got to keep hiking. Even on the AT, I have a video in the Smokies. One thing that kind of irked me was a lot of people just stayed in the shelter all day instead of moving to the next shelter. So I hiked from one shelter in the freezing rain to the next. It was completely full. I could barely get out of the rain because everyone just stayed put. It's like, all right, well, the next shelter is 5 miles away, so I guess I'll go there. Got there, same thing, just jam-packed. Nobody left. Everyone just stayed there, stayed in their spots for the night, their bunk area. All right, next one's 2 miles away. And from there, it's a very short hike to Klingman's Dome. So I thought if anyone was that close to the hitchhike point, they would have went in the rain to try to go to town and just get out of it. Nope, completely full. But by that time, it was getting dark and I was cold. So I just stayed there and like kind of...
You basically kind of snuggled in and...
Well, I hammocked there.
Okay.
That was another pet peeve. I was not a fan of the huts and the shelters because I'm a light sleeper and there's always going to be someone that snores. There's always going to be someone that wants to get on the trail first thing and is rustling around at 4 a.m. And then there's the mice. And yeah, so I normally try to hammock camp near a shelter because they had the picnic table to cook your dinner and they had a water source nearby. And it was nice to have that kind of like friendship and camaraderie around the campfire every night.
How did the hammock hold up in all of the rain, all of the wet?
It's great. This is one of the things why I think hammock camping is the best, because you set your tarp and then it's much bigger than a tent underneath the tarp. And then everything you have stays off the ground. So everything stays completely dry. You don't have a wet tent and a wet rain fly. Water can't really seep underneath your tent onto your ground thing and then up in your sleeping bag. Everything stays 100% dry except your tarp. So I was really a big fan of that. There was, that I can remember, one night I didn't hang the tarp that well. So I got rained on and things got a little wet. But in general, yeah, I think for bad weather, I would definitely prefer a hammock.
And because of the way that the tarp, so you've got the hammock kind of going through the middle, and you've got the tarp here, and I take it you just put your backpack underneath you or whatever. And
yeah, normally actually would add a little carabiner, so I'd hang my backpack on my ridge line as well, so it'd be not getting wet, and then also if there's any little ground rodents running around, they couldn't really easily just get in there.
Yeah, that would be a sad day if you woke up and found a little hole in your pack.
Yeah, did happen on the CDT during the coldest stretch of my life. After my northbound flip flop, I got back on trail at Cumbres Pass, which is not quite out of the mountains yet, on October 28th, and it was snowing. And I was like, I just took 2.5 weeks off trail. I don't care. I'm starting. And this Australian guy, Hopper, was up at the pass trying to hitchhike down because he had just got there going southbound and thought I was mental, about to go out and the shit he just got in from, essentially. But one of those nights, I just was lazy and cold, and I didn't hang my food bag on my ridgeline or anywhere else. It wasn't quite bear country anymore, at least I don't think. Yeah, they're hibernating anyway, I guess. But anyway,
bears.
Woke up the next morning, saw a little hole in the food bag, and thought, damn it. But the mouse only nibbled on one single Oreo and then left. So I basically lost one Oreo cookie. I actually probably still ate it, but
that's right. Considering the things that people pick up off the ground and eat.
Yeah. What diseases could the mouse have? Not that many.
So apparently you were lucky that you found or that the mouse that found you was not an Oreo fan.
Yeah. And that just turned him off the rest of my food bag. He was just so grossed out by that cookie. Didn't want to look around for any of the other beef jerky or anything else I had rooting around in there.
Oh, what was your favorite snack out there?
I have to come back to that one. So I have a lot of like go-to snacks and food. Well, probably my favorite is peanut butter pad thai, Backpackers Pantry, like ready meals. But those were a delicacy. It's expensive and bulky and kind of heavy to pack those out for every meal. But every couple trail towns, when I get a new bag, so I also reuse those nice bags for all my other food, so I didn't have to get my pot dirty. Another pro tip. But whenever Outfitter or REI or whoever would have that flavor of that brand, it's just so good. I don't know why it's so much better than all the other competition.
So I guess to go back to your pro tip,
because
I am all about the pro tips and the hacking of it all.
Right.
So what you're saying is basically taking like the backpacker pantry or whatever the mountain house, the container that everything's in, and using that essentially. Okay. Yeah.
So you cook it regularly, but then you keep the bag. You might rinse it out and use that bag for a section or two, a couple 100 miles, and you can kind of scrape it out with your spoon. And everyone has the different threshold of when that's gross, I'm getting a new one. But I thought it was such, cleaning a pot every day, and also for L&T, you're not supposed to have any food scraps dumped into the water sources. So it's kind of a 2 birds, 1 stone with that method.
You're boiling the water. You're not boiling the food necessarily. You're just dumping the hot water into the food.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that worked great for any other backpacker pantry type meal, instant potatoes, oatmeal, things like that. Mac and cheese was a little weird because it normally took it would either get cold if you dump the hot water in the bag, or it'd be a pain to clean up out of your pot. So I never quite got that one down. I'd normally try to cold soak it a little, and then you put boiling water in and trying to find that perfect amount of water. So it just never quite worked out. But
it was like alchemy. Like you had to get everything just perfect for it to come through.
And then of course you're not hiking with measuring cups. You don't know exactly how much water you're putting in.
Yeah. Did you ever do actual full on cold soaking out there?
For breakfast, I did sometimes. I'd cold soak oatmeal. but that was about it.
That was just time.
Never did with, yeah. Just that's another thing. Cut weight. A lot of people just go stoveless, and well, when it's warm out, I could see it. But when it's cold, there's nothing better than just having a hot cup of tea or a warm meal at the end of the day. It's just unparalleled.
Yeah, I think in my head, I romanticize it a little bit, but the idea at the end of the day of having something warm in your hands, even if you're not sitting there in front of a fire, but you're just sitting there in front of the scope that is the stars and the Milky Way and the, whatever.
Yeah.
Though I know that would be considered staying up after hiker midnight, but
sometimes it's really worth it. Yeah, it just adds that whole nother level. Yeah, like you said, just having that warm cuppa.
Exactly. I guess, and speaking of the beauty that is the Milky Way and all of that, like you out there were doing a lot of photography, some of it night photography and that kind of stuff, or evening photography. Was that your thing going into the AT, or did that sort of evolve while you were on the AT?
Completely evolved on the trail. I used to have an older GoPro and just made silly movies, screwing around with that. But I started to get more into photography. So my brother and my mom, my stepmom, they're all very into photography. So that was starting to rub off on me a little bit. And I borrowed my brother's old camera when I did the Wonderland Trail just to try to get used to hiking with it and, figure out how to use a camera. So I was still very much a novice when I started the AT, and I got my own camera, but didn't really know a lot of the settings, and most of it was just messing around. If I tried astrophotography early on, turned out terrible. So then the next town, I spent some time YouTubing what settings are great for astrophotography and learned, you want to change the ISO to this, you want to change the white balance to that, and then just pick up all these little tips and tricks along the way. And I recently had my new job, sadly back in a cubicle, but I've taken all of my photos from the trail, and those are all like on my background and screensaver, just rotating. And that was the first time I really went back through my old AT photos and realized how far my photography has come just from playing with the camera while you're on these trails. So that was cool to see that evolution.
Did you have the camera out like on your shoulder strap or something so you could literally just snap away?
Yeah, I had one of those straps that's just right here on the shoulder straps with like a quick release. So it's just like clap, click.
Quick draw.
Yeah, definitely recommend that as well. I think Peak Designs makes them. There's a lot of different knockoffs and other brands, but yeah, it's basically a tripod thing you screw to your camera. That's like a standard about 1.5 inch square, and then a thing that you can fasten to your shoulder strap.
What was the big pro tip for you on the AT?
Hammock.
But you kind of had decided to do that going into it, right?
Yeah. You mean like pro tip that I discovered once on trail, or?
Yeah.
One thing I found, if you're trying to land a hitchhike, it's obviously a little bit tougher for bearded people, males in general. But if you dance, I got hitchhikes a lot more quick because they're like, all right, he's not like a serial killer, right? Serial killers don't dance. So I remember I was with my friend Easygoing, and we were trying to hitch to a town in Pennsylvania, and we're just having no luck. And I thought, all right, dude, let's start dancing. He just thought I was crazy. And maybe 3 cars later, this car pulled over, and his exact words were, "We're going to pick you up." But then he started dancing. I thought he must be all right.
You look harmless, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And kind of fun, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another one, use the trekking poles and pretend I'm in a rowboat. Another move. Yeah, just using the trekking poles a lot. 'Cause that's another thing I would tell people who said maybe it's their first time picking up a hitchhiker. If they have the trekking poles, they're a hiker, and they're not some like crazy homeless man. They're just trying to get to town for a meal, and they're cool, and they'll thank you and be very appreciative of everything. It's all the difference is the trekking poles.
That's a huge tip because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it is easier, so I've heard, for women to get hitchhikes because they're less dangerous, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the big signal.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just look like a homeless person.
Yep. And in general, I also highly recommend trekking poles. I know some people through hike without them, but their knees probably won't be the same. I leaned on mine like crazy. I've bent many a pairs because, like, going up hills, I'm just really leaning on them, and going down hills, I'll flip them so it's on my palm to try to transfer my motion through my arms. And yeah, they're a lifesaver. I can't recommend trekking poles enough.
Well, and actually that just reminded me, like, watching your videos, there were a lot of videos where I saw you using both hands, but you were still videoing it. So it wasn't necessarily your
I had a GoPro.
Right on your forehead?
Yep. It's a funny story about that. I had the old one I used to do those silly movies with, and it was a Hero 3. So it had a little camera, then a big case you put it in. And the case is what made it waterproof. And a separate head strap specifically for that. So it's just kind of a bulky extra weight. And in Bishop, California, I upgraded to the Session, which is the smaller little cube, and it itself is waterproof, so you can get rid of the housing. It's not as heavy, so you don't need its own head strap. I had it on the same one as my headlamp, so I'm getting some dual use. And then we stayed at the Hostel California. Great place if you're in Bishop. And one of the workers there was going tubing on the Owens River, and they had a bunch of tubes, and he had a van and was like, anybody wants to come, let's go tubing. So we're taking a 0 day. Of course we went tubing, and I just got this new GoPro, and like any time you go tubing, you get kind of drunk, and it slipped off my head into the river, which had a very strong current, and they were releasing some dam upriver in like 3 days, and it was just going to flood it. So I kept trying to like swim down and find it, but the stronger current was lower in the river, so like, it was just gone. And I was fuming mad. I couldn't believe I just wasted this money on this. And back at the hostel, just through these Hail Marys, I reached out to like GoPro and to Amazon. It's like, hey, I'm a thru hiker. Like, I was wearing the head strap appropriately, and it broke, and I'm out this GoPro, blah, blah. And never thought it was going to come, but Amazon said, oh, we'll send you a new one, free of charge.
Huh.
And
go Amazon.
That's one of those things, Amazon, you always think of this evil corporation, but in that one instance, I was like, I don't mind them taking over the world if they can help me out.
In this one instance, they did good.
Yeah, it was one instance. Yeah, but ever since then, you just keep hearing about all the terrible stuff they're doing. But that's a whole nother thing. We don't need to get into.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So when did the new Session or whatever catch up with you?
Pretty soon after. So I think a good bit of this year as I was without my GoPro, but I still had my camera for videos and then my phone for videos. And it arrived near North of what was that? Tuolumne Meadows. It was down sort of another kind of crazy hitchhiking around, and Sea Lion was having some like plantar fasciitis or a calf issue, and our trail family had broken up like a little bit, and she wanted to take some rest days, and she didn't care about being a purist, and I was kind of a purist on the AT, kind of on the PCT, but with fire closures it started to erode a little bit, and then the CDT I was just like continuous footpath is the only thing I care about. But anyway, she's like, I want to rest. How about you hitch ahead, or you hike ahead, and then you can hitch back to Mammoth, and we'll be here for the 4th of July. I thought, all right, it sounds good. So I hitched ahead, and then in the hitchhike from like Tuolumne Meadows down to the east side, I forget the name of the little town, but I had it sent there. There's some grocery store that accepts hiker packages. So it hit there, and then hitchhiked back down to Mammoth, and was there for 4th of July. And then we hitched together back up to Tuolumne Meadows and then rendezvoused with the rest of our trail family. So it kind of worked out. And luckily I got our Mount Whitney footage uploaded prior to losing the GoPro. So the only footage I lost was Forester Pass, like sledding down on the north face, which would have been kind of cool. And then this one stretch of trail, the snow was kind of still like this, and there's like a little bit of a level spot you could pick your way across. And I was filming Sea Lion because she was ahead of me like 10 feet, and then she slipped and started sliding down, and like she was enough ahead I couldn't catch her. And then there was a little ledge in about 5 feet where she stopped, and it would have been 5-foot drop after that. Like she wouldn't have died. She might have twisted an ankle. It would have been one of those really crazy, real raw moments that I just happened to have the camera like, oh, okay, you're good? You're good? Oh. So first and foremost, glad she didn't get hurt. Second, I'm glad I got the Whitney footage because that was a really cool side quest. But yeah, it kind of sucks just, losing footage. And then later on the CDT also had some SD card issues, and that's what started falling so far behind on my pictures and blog. Was in the Wind River Range. I decided to just like stop the blog and enjoy the trail because I lost all this footage and I had to like send the card away to get some company to recover it and this and that, but I got it all back, so I'm happy.
But how did that change the nature of your hike? Going from like
slipping?
No. Sorry. Going from you're blogging and you're doing all of that to I'm not going to worry about that stuff. I'm just going to focus on the
freed
hike.
Up a lot of time to really truly relax in town or on your 0 days. Because before it used to be, like every night. I did keep a journal through all the trails, so I'm really glad to have that to really just be able to spark your memories when you're trying to go back and write about a day or describe a photo. If you just have that kind of detailed breakdown of it, but not having to edit pictures and then upload pictures and then type a summary of every day and organize it. And it was really, really nice just to be able to get to town and just be a normal hiker, and watch crappy TV movies and drink a bunch of beer and eat a bunch of pizza and call it a day first. All right, yeah. Oh, you guys are going out to the restaurant? Well, I'm going to try to edit this video instead, and I'll catch up with you later. And then, I want to get these photos ready for that. And it was really nice. So again, to any future hikers, if you're going to blog, I would advise to maybe go into it knowing it's going to be a huge time drain and just try to do like a very, very pared down, like maybe even just Instagram. I try to do more of that full-fledged thing with like day 42, 18.6 miles to this camp, and then write all about the day, include all the pictures, any fun video clips. And that really did just become too overwhelming. And part of me in hindsight wishes the other trails that I did less of that and really just enjoyed the town and the present a little bit more.
I guess people have described through hiking as a job, but it feels like it becomes a job.
Yeah, it does. Because granted, it's a job you love and you voluntarily went on, but there's times where it's grueling and it's really not fun. You feel stuck, and it's like it's not a particularly scenic section, and I'm just hiking 8 to 12 hours a day, just walking, or if it's raining or if views are all whited out or whatever reason. There's definitely days where it's not glamorous and it feels like something you have to do, very similar to most jobs.
You just got to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One foot in front of the other.
Yep. I know I've heard people describe the Great Basin as one of those places because it's so long, it's so empty, it's so not interesting, I guess is probably a better word for it.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
That it's sort of a place to just get through.
Yeah. And people going northbound, I think, have it better because it's the crappy section. And then when you're through it, you are rewarded with the Wind River Range, which rivals Glacier. It is so unreal. And the beauty there is just unparalleled. You know, it's so amazing. But going southbound, it's the opposite. And you come out of this super majestic area that's kind of still a hidden gem. You know, everyone always hears about Glacier's beautiful, or, you know, all these areas, but I don't think I've ever heard of the Wind River Range before the CDT. So coming from that and then just getting shat out into the desert where it's flat, there's no trees, and all the water is gross cow tanks, and yeah, like 150 miles of that. It's just, man, this sucks.
And if I remember correctly, like there's quite a distance between places where you can resupply too, right?
Yeah, that whole stretch, really from Idaho to Colorado, there's some pretty long stretches that, I mean, it also depends how much you want to go off trail and hitchhike. You know, through the Wind River Range, you can go, I think, 12 miles off trail to a lodge where you can then hike down to a town, or you can just do 170 miles straight. And I elected to do that because I don't know why, but for some reason I hate off-trail miles and I hate backtracking. So I was like, I'd rather do 170 in one shot than pile up 24 off-trail miles.
Was that something that evolved? Like you hating to do extra miles?
Yeah, like I don't really know why, but even on the AT, you know, if there's water 0.5 off trail or water on trail 5 miles ahead, I'm just like, I'm just going to go to the next water. I don't know. I don't know why I'm like that, but but yeah, in general, your original question, that stretch, it is, the towns are pretty few and far between, and then some of the towns that you can get to are very, very barely clinging on to the name of a town, like barely could be considered a town. You know, there's like 3 houses and a post office. So you need a time, if the post office is closed for the weekend, then you're going to be stuck in this town for a couple of days waiting for it, or the grocery store might just be whatever a gas station has. So there's definitely some places like that, but in general, you can get by probably without mailing yourself any food drops. I would recommend doing your due diligence and research and finding those handful of towns where it's advisable to mail yourself some food. Otherwise, you're going to be surviving off Snickers and Pop-Tarts.
Which sounds so appetizing when you say it like that.
Yeah.
When you finished the CDT and had to go back to the real world, like, were you ready for that? Or did you sort of do a slow immersion back in?
Yeah, I definitely took my time. On one hand, the other 2 trails kind of trained me for that, because I knew what to expect in those initial weeks when you need to really try to limit your food because you're not burning all those calories again. And when you're not constantly in nature, and when you're getting back into a job and, you know, just more routine life stuff, kind of knew that was coming. But then something that's been snowballing is the post-trail depression, because it never hit me, because after the AT, I knew that in 6 months I was doing the PCT. And after the PCT, I knew in 6 months I was doing the CDT. You know, like I always had this next big adventure planned. And then when I finished all 3, didn't really have anything on the books. You know, I joined Sea Lion in Austin, so that was cool, being in a new town to explore, and it's a really, really great city. But then I was just, you know, that whole, okay, what am I going to do with life now? You know, I was a mechanical engineer for almost 10 years before I started my AT, and didn't really want to go back to the office life. I was trying to figure out, you know, just what to do. So I started doing Grubhub and walking dogs. And then it was good, you know, walking dogs kept me walking, kept me outside. Grubhub was what it is, paid all right, I guess. And then I was going to go be a ski instructor again. So in between the PCT and CDT, the 18-19 winter with all that snow, we were living in Colorado and I was a ski instructor at Vail, and it was amazing. Loved it. It was one of the best snow years they've had in forever. So that was really cool. And again, one of those things that kept normal feelings of post-trail depression away, because you're still outside every day among all these kind of like-minded, cool people. You're just skiing, you're having a great time. So I was going to go back and do that for the month of March in 2020. And some of her PCT friends and Sea Lion came out. We made like a snowboarding, skiing trip out of it. And then I had 2 days of classes before they closed the mountain due to COVID. So then I had a kind of awkwardly, the nervous energy when it first kind of broke out was so weird. It's like, am I guaranteed to get COVID? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I went back to Austin to join Sea Lion and weather that storm. And then we moved back to Maryland. And then I started thinking like, all right, it's COVID, can't really travel or do anything. So I guess I might as well try to go back into the engineering world, and started applying to a bunch of jobs, but wasn't really the best time to try to find a new job during the pandemic and lockdown and everything. But then I landed this one here in Maryland, and we've been here for a few months and kind of gotten used to the cubicle life again, but really trying to find something else that really has that balance where, it's unfortunate in America, everything is, you're either career oriented, you work 40 hours a week and you'd be happy with your 3 weeks vacation and that's that, or it's you have to work a more gig economy or a seasonal job. And I'm really hoping to find something where I can use my engineering skills, because I actually kind of enjoy the work, but I just want time off. And every engineering company I've ever known or talked to, they don't give you time off. You have your vacation and that's it. You want to take unpaid leave? They're like, that's weird. No, what's wrong with you? You want to not get paid for a month and go play in the woods? Yeah, it sounds amazing. No, I'll hear nothing of that. So that's my current status, is kind of just feel like I'm coasting. I'm here, not really happy with it, but it's kind of just that through hiker thing. You always are looking for the next thing or the next new adventure, the next this or that. And now COVID and realizing that's not an entirely sustainable lifestyle to through hike every year. It's kind of all 3 years of post-trail depression seems to be kind of getting me some from time to time.
It all caught up with you.
Yeah. It's been kind of rough, but again, shout out to Sea Lion. She's definitely my rock. Couldn't do it without her.
Well, from our conversation previously, she kind of got it after the PCT. So in a strange kind of way, she was ahead of you on that curve.
Yeah. Yeah. And also with that, she quickly got her remote job. Yeah, she got her remote job since before it was cool. But, that kind of isolated her, because I was out with all my ski instructor friends, and if there was a slow class day, we got cut. All right, sweet, man, let's go change our uniform, go ski Vail. It's one of the best mountains in the world. And it's right in our backyard. We get planted every day. And then she had her, off, although at home, still office job where I, kind of have to be at my computer for 8-ish hours and doing work. So I could definitely see why I kind of started to hit her before me. And then also she knew she wasn't doing the CDT next year, and I still kind of had that in my back pocket, like, just get through the winter and I'll be back on the trail soon enough.
Yeah. There's very much that adventure awaits thing with the trails. I know you're trying to balance I'm working now full time with where's the next adventure? Like, have you come up with any target or plan at this point?
We talk about it a lot, but it's just so hard because, at the job market, it's kind of difficult to just quit your job and know that you might have another job in 3 months after you go hike a trail. We both really like the desert, so maybe we should go do the Hayduke or the Arizona Trail in October. But again, you need to try to time that with a job. So I don't want to quit a job to go hike that and be back basically unemployed for 4 months, applying to jobs and all left and right. And so, yeah, it's really just trying to save money now and figure out how we can, like start businesses or get passive income from whatever source to be able to do that and be more of our own boss and be able to take time off if we want to go through hike, or, if we both have remote jobs, if we can, time it to be able to go do our remote jobs, but in another country somewhere, just rent an Airbnb, make it possible. And another thing, timing wise, is leases, like putting all your stuff somewhere in storage. Like I was really fortunate, and I just got a storage locker close to my house in Baltimore, so I kind of threw everything in there. And then in between trails, when my tenants' leases were up, I would move back into the house and then have my stuff close by, so I could just move in the bare essentials and then live there and throw some paint on, be able to show it to tenants whenever and not have to try to follow rigid schedules of when to meet people. And that was really nice. But then again, all my stuff's in storage. So if, like I needed a tool, it's not just in the basement. I had to drive to storage and open it up. And or if I wanted my bicycle, I left it in storage, and just all these different things. So kind of like I said earlier, it's nice that we're here and we have all our stuff here, and we're like finally in a nest and not just in a temporary house we know we're going to be fleeing in 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. It feels like you're kind of in that eternal through hiking struggle. So it's like if you find the solution to it, if you figure out the way to hack it, there's like a world of through hikers out there that are like, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured out, I'll definitely share. It's definitely like two sides, being in a relationship, you have to take their wants into consideration. Like one thing we just kind of talked out was, originally I was applying to a lot of jobs in Colorado and Pacific Northwest because we thru hiked and we loved the mountains. And then Sea Lion started to realize she actually thinks she'd rather be closer to a beach, and those places aren't really near the beach. So then you kind of have that give and take and that compromise of, okay, if after Maryland, if I get a remote job and she's still with her job, or if we land a job, wherever, where can we both be happy? Or, like if I was single, I might just be out being a ski bum again, teaching ski lessons this winter and just trying to live it up. But I'm also 35. So it's starting to get in that spot where, do I want to just be seasonal ski instructor? Like, not to talk down on that profession. I met a lot of people that did do that throughout their life, but on a part of me just feels like I have a good skill set and career, and I want to just find that balance where I can use those, but not in that typical full-time 40-hour a week, every week of the year type setting. And that's what I'm looking for. And unfortunately, it seems to be very rare.
Yeah. I'm going to just mention, and I guess basically I'm putting out a little PSA for Portland, Oregon. It's so nicely situated that you're literally 2 hours from Mount Hood and Timberline, which is the skiing and all of that, and you're also 2 hours from the ocean.
That is definitely a town that we've been hitting heavy. Denver, Portland, and Seattle were the three main hubs I was applying to like crazy, but nothing was panning out. And I think part of that was they try to hire people that currently live there. Yeah. And also part of it was, seeing a 2-year gap on my resume, it might seem as a flight risk.
Yeah.
This guy,
that's a hard.
Sorry, what?
I was gonna say that's a hard thing. I mean, I wasn't on the trail necessarily last year, but because my work is freelance, like I had taken some kind of time off, and it's hard to get past that gap is there because I chose to want to do X, Y, and Z, know, and I wasn't looking for a job, and I just, I was enjoying my life, so to speak.
Exactly. I hate how that's so weird to so many people. It's like I chose to not work and enjoy myself. And,
Yeah.
like I live very frugally. I can save up and, afford not to have to work all that much. And, like another big thing I had mentioned putting all the stuff in storage. That's another huge thing. Timing these trails and everything was not having to pay rent while I was on the trail. I have met some hikers that were still paying their rent and everything as they hiked. And it's like, ooh, that's some cases doubling how much a through hike costs when you have all those bills back at home. So I guess we can call it a pro tip. If you can avoid, if you can pare all your bills down as much as possible. Like I even stopped car insurance. I'm not driving my car. Why would I pay that every month? Yeah, but on the flip side, if you get those squared away, through hiking is cheaper than regular life. Granted, you're not having the money come in from your job, but you don't have rent, you don't have utilities, you're not going out to bars and restaurants nearly as much, you're not going to movies. There's all these things that go out the window because you're just outside walking all the day, all day, every day.
Yeah. I guess that is the thing that's in my head right now of how can I find something to make money that goes into my bank account that will allow me to do the through hike, that will allow me to do the traveling, that will allow me to do, enjoying life, so to speak, without the constant stress of, I need to find the next job. I need to find the next job.
Yeah. Especially you mentioned freelance. I mean, that seems like a lot more, you don't have that steadiness and kind of reliability of just that employer being like, here's your money. You got to hustle and keep those clients up to date and everything.
Yeah. It's the funniest dichotomy of when you're working really hard and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait for us to be done and to have the vacation and all of that. But then on the flip side of that, as the job starts winding down, you're getting stressed because you're wondering where the next job is going to come from. Where's the next money going to come from? And so you don't get to really enjoy your vacation, so to speak.
Yeah. Another thing on vacation is how the standards just, if you're lucky, you take 5 days off, so you get 8 to 10 days of vacation. But I feel like that's what it takes to finally decouple yourself from work and stop thinking about it. So by the time you're truly relaxed and enjoying the vacation, it's time to head home and start getting ready for the next work week.
Yep, exactly. Oh, gotta love it.
Yep.
How did you get the trail name Space Jam?
Got a prop ready just for that.
Stand by.
So I hiked in these little short shorts.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And these are one of my Triple Crown gear. They barely made it through the CDT, but they're with me on all 3 trails. I had to do a lot of sewing to keep them running. But yeah,
we've got
short
space.
Shorts, runner shorts. Yeah, very spacey print. I really like. Very good airflow. And if you're on steep terrain, you don't have like the pant leg kind of robbing your step as you take a high knee, kind of minuscule amounts, but I feel like robs you of that energy. And then for guys, it's also really easy to use the bathroom. You don't have to like unbuckle anything. You can just kind of go under the fence. So that's really nice. And then they also doubled as swim trunks. So anytime I went on those cliff jumps or lake swims, I didn't have to change into anything or worry about chafe or anything of that nature.
They were multifunctional?
Yes. Yeah. Just in general, if anything can be multifunctional, that's the way to do it.
I've heard that from people where they start looking at everything that they're carrying as how many different things can I use this for?
Yeah.
And if I can use this for X, Y, and Z, then I don't need all of this other stuff that I'm also carrying.
Yeah. So like one good one is, you take your poo trowel, to dig your cat holes. But if you do it right, poo never touches that. Only dirt does. So you can also use that as your spoon for your food. Boom, weight saved. I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. I'm like, that's taking it a bit too far.
that may be a bridge too far.
Yeah. But On the AT, this one old timer, like triple crowner, and he's just been retired. He's been hiking. He just got a brand new Deuce of Spades, one of the ultralight poo trowels that they make. And there's some section hikers having lunch at a table, one of the picnic tables. And then I think I'm botching this, but he kind of just went up and threw it because it was brand new. So there's like wasn't ever even near cat holes. But he kind of said that joke or threw it down, and everyone got all grossed out. Like, oh, it's brand new. See, there's like scratches on it. I can just mess with you guys. But
just the thought of it.
Yeah, it's too close.
Oh my gosh. Was there ever a moment when you were on the trails where you wondered or thought, why am I out here? Why am I doing this?
Say like a couple times it seeped into my head, if it was just a particularly rainy, shitty day or cold day, but never really bad until the CDT, particularly the last stretch in New Mexico is when Sea Lion and I were just really missing each other and over it. And there was a few times I had cell service and would just be on the phone with her for hours as I walked. And, I thought about quitting because she's in this new city by herself. And, you've had her as a guest. She's amazing. She makes friends easy, but it was still a tough time for her as well. And part of me was thinking, like, why am I out here? Like I can quit and just finish it next year. If even the official definition of a through hike is within a calendar year or within a year, so you start. So I was like, I started late June, so I can easily finish New Mexico before that next year, and be with her, get more established in Austin, and cross my mind a few times, but she was pretty adamant of like, no, quit if you're gonna quit, but I'll get through this. Like it's rough, but do not quit for me. And I could appreciate her telling me that and toughing it out because this is kind of a dream. Like 5 years in the making is when I first heard about the Triple Crown and thought, I think I want to do that, and just started getting more into backpacking and Wonderland Trail for the test hike and this and that. And it finally coming to fruition. The finish line's almost there, and it's like, and now at the end is when I'm starting to think about quitting. Is it's not when I first started on the AT or like hiking through crappy parts of whatever. It's like now at the very end, I'm finally just over it and sick of being the only hiker out here and not seeing people and missing my fiance. And yeah, so it crossed my mind a few times, but just kept going, one foot in front of the other.
Were you ready to be done when you finished?
Very much so. I think all 3 trails, I was ready to be finished 3/4 of the way through, if not sooner. Because it's just that kind of tipping point when your body's really starting to wear down from just going day after day, finishing with a deficit in calories, and you just start to kind of miss those really small luxuries like just a soft bed or AC or heat or whatever. So I've been asked like, oh, when's your next through hike or what's your next trail? And I'm definitely done with multi-1,000-mile trails. Like maybe Hayduke or Arizona Trail, one of those sub-1,000, month and a half. That's kind of a nice, comfortable time frame. You get your trail legs, you get that feeling of being a nomad and really being outside and embracing it and loving it. And then right when you start to get sick of it, you can go because you're done.
So you wouldn't think about going over to New Zealand and say doing the TA or?
Not so both that and the Pacific Northwest Trail, from what I've heard, they still seem a bit too much in their infancy and they're not established enough. So there's just a little too much bushwhacking or road walking. It's after the CDT, I don't mind kind of choosing your own adventure, but I think the road walks on the TAs definitely something I would avoid. That being said, my friend Pig Pen and Blocks, who first did the PCT and ruined my life by introducing me to this world, They did the TA 2 years ago, and they also knew about the roadwalks and said, we're just going to treat it as a backbone to explore the country. And we're not going to do any roadwalk. We're just going to hitch all of that. Or when we get to lengthy roadwalks, take a break from the trail and hitchhike to other cities or things to check out, and really just explore the country instead of just being stuck on this one narrow passageway. So I would definitely do that for the TA. And I don't know, I haven't really looked into the Pacific Northwest Trail recently, but next one, again, if things come together and line up, I think Sea Line, I would like to do the Arizona Trail because it's more kind of established. It's desert. On the other hand, the Hayduke also in the desert, but there's really no trail. It's just kind of a vague direction to follow.
Yeah, it seems like it's sort of like, okay, you're going to go that way. Good luck.
Yeah, it's just like head south until the third canyon, then take right, and there's an old hubcap with a rock in it that means you've gone too far.
Yeah.
It's still kind of that, and there's not like established trails and water sources, and that can be kind of rare. And there's definitely other things to take in consideration when you're planning for it.
Yeah, I think for me, the Arizona trails seems really interesting because I absolutely love the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And it's that opportunity to go literally from rim to rim as part of an overall trail.
Yeah, I was about to say rim to rim and a lot more after that.
I know, and then some more.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, talking about, you were talking earlier about challenges. And on the PCT, you did the 24-24-24 challenge.
Yep. That was a fun one.
How did that go for you?
I crushed it along with two of our Canadian friends. So if you're ever listening out there, the 24-24-24 challenge is you have to drink 24 beers within 24 hours and hike 24 miles. So a lot of people just do the math and think, well, 1 beer an hour and 1 mile an hour is easy. But carrying 24 beers is extremely heavy. So you want to hike as little as possible with a full case of beer. So we wound up doing a power hour at, what is that lodge? There's a lodge soon after you cross into Oregon. I can't remember the name. South of Ashland. Man, I'm drawing blanks over the 24 miles of trail we found this. But we basically did a power hour to get rid of 8 beers right off the bat and really lighten the load. Then we got to the trailhead and then hung out for like another couple hours, and I drank, I think, another 4. So I was basically halfway done the beer amount and I'd hiked like 0.1 miles.
You were crushing
was
it.
Pretty drunk. Only me and Moose and Midge, 2 of our Canadian trail fam, tried the full 24 challenge. A lot of others were like, I'll do 12 beers in 24 hours and 24 miles. But it was just so funny just having everyone be drunk trying to hike and stay in a group at first from this trailhead, and we made it maybe 6 miles, and then people started dropping off to take naps, and it was just kind of all over. But we wound up making it I think 14 miles that day, and then the next day I was down to just like 6 beers and 12 miles and had 4 or 5 hours to do it, so it seemed really easy. Our friend Squirrel did this challenge on the Appalachian Trail, and he was very much against it because they said you can't sleep. And I think if you want it to be a real challenge, that's how you have to do it, because sleep just gives you a full reset. It's like you're not drunk anymore. If you have to do 24 throughout one period of being awake and all the miles in that time frame, that might have been more challenging. But by then, Northern California, Southern Oregon, I was a hiking machine. My body was a furnace. I was metabolizing the beers like as quickly as I could drink them. So it wasn't too bad.
So did you end up getting your 24 miles in 24 hours?
Yep. Yeah, me and Moose and Midge, we all finished it. And the lodge that we ended it at, we're just like right there. And we had maybe half hour to spare. We were just kind of trying to wait for everyone else to catch up. And Hope we didn't lose any soldiers on the way.
Yeah, no kidding. What was the longest day, like hiking wise, that you did?
It's kind of two. The longest I did on the CDT, and it was 50 miles, but I think 37 of that was a road walk. So part of me feels like it doesn't quite count because it was just on the side of the road. That was cool just because I wanted to beat my previous record. And also that was on the finish line of my northbound through hike. So it was ending in Rawlins, Wyoming, which is also in the Great Basin, and there's no trees. So I camped basically at the last area of trees, which was 50 miles on this road walk. And then snow hit right as I got to town, or a couple miles before town. And I knew of this really cool bar called Hole in the Wall that I just went straight there. I feel like an old outlaw because snow was completely caked in my beard. I was kind of like kicked the door open, looking all disheveled and soaking wet. It's just like, I need a beer. So I had my pack on and everything. And prior to that, my record was the 4-state challenge on the Appalachian Trail. So that's about 43 miles, I believe. And I timed it to be on the summer solstice. At first, trying to do it all in daylight. So summer solstice would give you the maximum amount of daylight possible. And also, the summer solstice is commonly hike naked day. So I did both.
So you got a couple of different challenges out there.
Yep. And one crazy friend I made, Flatfoot, did it with me. And we did wear loincloths because going through Maryland and Harper's Ferry, and there's just a lot of people. And we actually passed a couple of like field trips with kids. So it was good to be, just our butts out, not everything, end up on a sex offender list just for trying to make it for a day. But that was really wild. We didn't quite make it all in daylight, but I was very glad to be taking a 5-day vacation in Maryland afterwards because I had chafe from my pack straps rubbing on me. I had like a shin splint. I had broken my toe in Northern Virginia, and that was really hurting. And like my body was just done. I almost passed out that night afterwards, like face down. It was a lot. So I was really glad to, I guess, after my 50-mile day too, because I connected my footpath and then going home for a wedding. So in both cases, I was very fortunate to have a break afterwards and not more miles to make with a body that I just destroyed trying to hike so many miles in one day.
What was your average miles per day?
What
would your body stand?
Varies a lot. Kept going up because the AT is the shortest but has the most elevation change. So that was my lowest average miles. I think it was 17. Can't quite remember the exact ones because there's your total average, and then if you remove 0 days are average, and then if you remove 0 days and 0 days are average. So there's always these different numbers that get thrown around. But I think AT overall was 14, and then 17 if you took out 0 days. PCT, it was like 17 and 20, and then CDT, it was like 24 and 27. I was doing tons and tons of days. There's multiple times I'd be like, all right, doing marathon mileage every day, or I'm trying to do 330s in a row, or just keep it going because I knew I had all these 0 days and off trail traveling to take care of. So I didn't want to lollygag too much.
Because you still needed to beat the snow, even though you didn't necessarily beat it in all places.
Yeah.
I saw that picture, I guess, when you're going into, what was it, Rawlins? Like your beard is just caked in snow and you look very mountain men-esque. Yeah.
And then the PCT was my biggest beard. It was easily twice this because I had all my AT growth. I didn't cut it when I went back to my engineering job. So I looked like a complete out of place mountain. I was just super shaggy and just over it. And then, so the finished photos from the PCT, I look crazy mountain man. And then going to teach ski lessons to children, I trimmed it back a bit because I didn't think parents would want to send their kid off all day with some homeless looking dude. So I trimmed it quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, and people get pretty crazy looking when they start with nothing. So to start with something initially and then go from there, I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking what, mountain man, middle of your chest type of.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point I would catch it in zippers, like zipping things up, and I tuck it up and.
Oh, that's brilliant. Too bad you don't have or Sea Lion doesn't have a video or whatever of you tucking it up to zip up.
Maybe someone in our trail family has it, in the back in the doldrums in their phone camera roll that they never look at again. There might be one of me in the background doing it.
Yeah. That's one of those pictures one of those video/pictures that, you take it on the day and it's funny just because it is, but that's one of those, 5-10 years down the road, when you look back at it, you're like, oh my God, I remember that moment, those days.
Those were the days. Let me tell you about this time I thru hiked.
Exactly. And I was catching my beard in the zipper.
Yep.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should?
I don't think so. Just one thru hike, one person can get endless amounts of funny tales and jokes and stories and everything. And 3 of them, I could definitely go on forever about them. So, unless there's any pinpoint you have, like favorites or bests of, or worst days, best, I don't know. Do you have any questions like that? Or
I do have a question about something that happened on the AT. I guess it was trail magic. It was pretty epic trail magic, actually. The Appalachian Pine Mixer.
Yep. Saw that video. Yeah, so
what was that?
Was at the Over Mountain Shelter in Virginia, which unfortunately is closed now because the barn's about to just collapse. It's just very old and decrepit, but it was beautiful. And the Savannah College of Art and Design, for one of their final projects, had to create a experience and design every single little facet of this experience. And this one group of students, somehow the professor took them all on a field trip to hike part of the AT in Georgia, and they really liked it. They hit some trail magic, so they chose that for their senior project. Was, we are going to throw the trail magic of all trail magics and make it the best possible thing. So they picked the Over Mountain Shelter because it's very scenic. They designed lightweight tables that looked like they had fancy tablecloths, but that they could pack out because the closest road was, I think, 8 miles.
Jesus.
They designed their wait staff to have these fancy bow tie uniforms and white gloves and everything. They had someone play the violin to set the ambiance. They had a culinary student prepare a 3-course meal. They laser engraved the menu on these wood slabs. And we almost missed it because our mileage worked out. We weren't going to camp there. It's 0.3 off trail. And you know me, I hate off trail miles. So I was just going to skip it. My friend said, Dapper Dan, like, come on, man, it's supposed to be the prettiest trail, the prettiest shelter on the whole trail. Let's just go check it out. I thought, all right, why not? It's not that far. We'll go check it out. And right when we were about to leave, the first student showed up and said, hey, you guys should stick around. I was thinking, what? Why? What's going on? And then the culinary student showed up wearing one of those tall chef hats. She's like, yeah, I'm about to cook some like gnocchi and salmon and brownies and salad and whatever. It's like, what? And sure enough, that's what happened. So it was just unbelievable. We didn't know that this trail magic, because on the AT you hit a lot. It's normally, I'll cook up some burgers, there's a cooler of beer, and like some snack packs and chips, which is great and amazing. But this level of 4-course meal at a 5-star restaurant type vibe, but out in the middle of the woods, was just so surreal. And we couldn't believe that it happened. And also that because of my stubbornness, we almost just walked right past it. So that was, something else. Never had a trail magic quite like that. sense.
It looked like you took a 5-star restaurant and you just transplanted it out into a field.
Yep. That's what it was. That class, that students, I hope they got an A+ on that project, because that was amazing. They nailed it. They designed every facet of that experience and made it the perfect trail magic.
After having that type of trail magic requiring you to go 0.3 off the trail, did that change at all your view of going a little off trail?
Not so much. A little bit. I don't know. Kind of depends what for the off trail would be. Sometimes it feels, oh, there might be a good viewpoint over there. You get to a point, you're like, I've seen views, is it gonna be that much better? Or a few times you hike out there and then there's a cloud rolling in and the view's just not there. It's just whiteness or whatever. So I don't know. I think that's maybe one of my flaws. I may have missed some other truly amazing experience like that because I didn't want to hike off trail.
And that in itself becomes the story.
Yep.
Where can people find you if they have any questions for you, or if they want to follow your continued adventures, wherever that leads?
Probably easiest way is search the hashtag Space Jam Hikes, and then from there you can find my Instagram and blog. Because I kind of started this before I had a trail name, so one of my nicknames was Groomanji because my last name is Grooman, and then it sounds like Jumanji because I was always kind of an outdoor guy. So groomanji.com is my blog that has like a recap of my hikes and other adventures and some photos and videos. And then my Instagram is @Groomanji. And my YouTube channel, again, I started a really long time ago, is The Groomanji with zeros instead of O's. So write all that down, or if you just got to remember, if you're driving or whatever, Space Jam Hikes, that should be your gateway.
Everything should pop up.
Yep.
On the AT, what was your favorite moment? What is the thing that, when you think of the AT, sort of represents it for you?
One moment.
I know, it's so hard.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's a really tough one. I don't know if I have one answer. There's so many, like the best trail magic, or like the best section, or like the best kind of self-awareness. Like in Maine, there's some stretches I wasn't with any trail families, and it's just so rugged and secluded up there. It's kind of when I started to like look inward and have that kind of introspection, and just think about life a lot more. And then there's other times it was super social, like other trail magics. There's one I wound up staying there for 18 hours because I hit it at night and it was raining, and they're like, hey man, you want to just camp out here? We got plenty of beer. We're gonna make pancakes and White Russians for breakfast. Okay. And then the next day they just turned it into a game. Like, hey, let's see how long we can keep Space Jam here. And anytime I try to leave, whoa, dude, let me get you another beer here. You can have my reclining camp chair. Like, where are you going? And I finally had a like prison break out of there. So AT, I think that's my favorite takeaway, is the social aspect. Some of my friends I still talk to this day. I had a job interview in Denver, hung out with my friend White a few times. He's been living there. And yeah, I think overall for the AT, the social aspect would probably be my answer for you, for maybe not a single moment, but just a single thing that I like best about the AT.
And what about on the PCT?
I'd probably think one of my favorite stretches was when we did the sunrise hike or night hike up to Mount Whitney for sunrise. And then, I kind of threw off your sleep schedule, but then it was the next day or the same day we went over Forester Pass and sledding down the other side. And then soon after that was Kearsarge Pass to get off the trail and then get into Bishop. And when we got to the Onion Valley campground, there was no camp spots left anywhere. And we were just completely exhausted. And this one group kind of took us in, like, hey, our friends aren't coming tomorrow. You can use that tent site. Hey, oh, you're through hikers? Like, we'll feed you, we'll make you some drinks and just have a great time. And they're just, super generous and super nice, great people. So kind of just that section, just everything seemed to fall into place and work perfectly. And it was one of those beautiful sections of the trail. It's definitely those times where you made the right choice coming out on a through hike. Unlike earlier, we talked about those unfortunate days where you're wondering why you're even there and it sucks and it's raining and it's cold or whatever. But that was definitely the flip side of that. And it was perfect.
And what about the CDT?
CDT. I really liked the dozen dip challenge. Just through the Wind River Range was insane, and being able to make those miles in daylight. The last one I was kind of running to get to before the sunset. The CDT's hard because the Wind River Range, the Gila River in New Mexico is another alternate route I think almost everyone takes because it's just undescribably beautiful. And then, of course, Glacier National Park is a very well-known go-to destination. But yeah, the CDT definitely probably kind of those three melded in with just how remote a lot of the areas were, when you really felt like you were out in the shit. You're in the final frontier. There's no help. There's no hiker that's going to pass you. There's no group of kids on a field trip or anything. It's just you out there with nature, and really felt cool to, especially this day and age, to escape society and people that much and not be, I'm through hiking, but there's a pack of Boy Scouts a mile behind me, and I'm about to cross 3 roads today and hit a handful of trail magics tomorrow, and then be in a town in a day. It's it's not quite the same feeling.
You felt the frontier? Yeah.
I feel like as much as you could without really, really going out there, to Alaska, crazy bushcraft style, surviving, just going out with a knife and catch all my food and build all my own shelter. Yes, that's truly the frontier, but I guess the reasonable frontier where you can not have to go through all of that, but still truly escape feeling like you're in a civilized society.
Being out that remote, did it ever make you pause and think, if something happens out here, it's all on me. It is what it is, because there's nothing coming.
Yeah, a few times. You noticed, I seem to always climb everything I could find and jump off into water. And on the CDT, there was a lot of times I kind of had to pump the brakes and realize that might look fun to climb, but if I slip or a rock gives out and I get hurt, there's no one coming. There's no partner hiking with me or group I passed earlier in the day who's going to be catching up. I have no idea how long I'll be out here. That was the only trail I hiked with a little Garmin Mini. So in the event of a real emergency, I could hit the SOS button and call for help. But luckily never needed to do that. I just used it to mark my campsite every night. And then loved ones following me could keep up with the Space Jam tracker and see all right, he checked in. That means he's not dead, or he's making progress,
Right. Yeah.
He's moving along.
He's still conscious because he's putting in the marker.
Yep. In Colorado, there's a Colorado Trail hiker I met. His name was Daddy because he was 7 feet tall. So anytime he was hiking with other people, it looked like he was taking his kids out on a hike. But we're staying at the Ravens hostel, I believe, in Lake City. It's a really cool hostel, and the owner was kind of frazzled. Hey, has anybody met a hiker named Daddy? Blah, blah. his dad's freaking out because his transponder like didn't move for 2 days, and that was unlike him. And we can't get a hold of him, this and that. It turns out he came across some hunters who just caught or shot a huge elk and needed help moving, like cutting up the meat and moving it. And Daddy had been a hunter, and they're like, "You're a giant human. You can definitely help us get this meat out before it will expire." So he just stayed with them for 2 days, and they promised to meet him down the trail when they had the elk processed, and to give him like all the jerky he wanted and like all the meat. So that was kind of funny hearing, his dad kind of freaking out, like, "Oh my God, my son's not moving on his transponder. He's not moving." He's like, "Oh, he was just helping hunters, cut up an elk and move it, and getting rewarded very handsomely for his efforts."
Yeah, I guess there's the upside and the downside of having that tracker, and so people are like, without being able to talk to you, like that's what they all they see is that thing, that little dot, and they have to assume all kinds of things based on that little dot and what's happening with that little dot.
Yeah, because I think overall definitely nice to have on the CDT being such a remote trail. I know my parents were like trying to demand I get one for the AT, and I was like, no, there's nothing that could happen where I will be by myself and another hiker won't be passing me within an hour. I guess between all the through hikers, all the section hikers, all the day hikers, there's just so many people on that trail. You're never truly alone.
Yeah. I see you're also wearing is that your Melly?
Oh, it sure is. This is kind of another CDT must-do rite of passage is when you go to Leadville in Colorado, you got to swing by the Melanzana shop and get yourself a Melly, because it's super cozy and comfy and warm, and highly recommend it.
Right, and they don't ship. Like,
yeah,
you have to come into the store.
Yeah, it's crazy how that marketing thing worked for them. They're like, "No, we're not expanding. We're just gonna keep making X amount a day and sell out every single day." And so yeah, I guess even when you are hiking, some of that's just luck. If they're gonna have extras to put out, you might have to take an extra 0 day in Leadville, which is a pretty nice town. There's lots, cool breweries, Pizza Huts, or not Pizza Huts, but pizza shops. So it's a worthwhile town to stay in. Worst places to take a 0.
Yeah. After hearing everybody talk so rapturously about their Mellies, like if I ever made it to Leadville, I would be there as long as it would take to get my own Melly.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my ski friends, Neil, was living there through the summer in the area. So he drove down to meet me, and like we went in the morning. They said, "No, we're not going to have a batch for another 3 hours." And we checked back like multiple times until they finally put a set out. And we just like grabbed 2 or 3, like, all right, let's make sure I really like this color. And I was getting one for Sea Lion for her birthday coming up in a month or 2 from then. And so, all right, well, yep. I need to make sure she likes the color first, because I want to get her a Melly, because they're so scarce and hard to get. If she doesn't like this, a little bit ruin the surprise for her. It's like, "Hey, do you like this color?" "Yeah, all right, I'll take the blue one. You'll take that one." Good to go. But
that's when you take a picture of just like a patch of it so she can see the color. So she doesn't know what it is yet, but
I may have mentioned it to her. I think I let the cat out of the bag, but hers, like the body was one color and the sleeves were another. Mm-hmm. So I guess it could have got on the line, but yeah. In general, she loved it, so it was a good gift.
Good choice. Excellent choice.
Thank you.
When you talk to your friends, this is kind of the last question I have for you. It's right. Like, now that you've done the Triple Crown, you've seen the 3 trails. When you talk to your friends, or when people ask you about the trails, like, I would imagine that it's very hard to summarize it.
Yeah.
But there's also an attention span thing going on. So like, how would you explain what you did?
Yeah, it's also really depends on like the exact audience or friend. I have some friends that have been hiking, so we can definitely go into the more in-depth answers. Some friends that think it's really cool and they would like to do it and would really just eat up all the knowledge you have to share. And then some friends that just think you're a lunatic and You got to keep it a little shorthanded. But I think you nailed it. There's just so many stories and so much to share, and just in general, unrelated to hiking, a lot of things remind you of some zany character you met or something you saw, and it's hard and sometimes kind of awkward because you also don't want to feel like this one time on this trail, this one time on this trail. So I'd imagine that'll get kind of old for other people, So yeah, I guess to answer your question more directly, it's really depends on kind of the exact friend and just knowing kind of their take and how they feel about hiking, whether they're going to be prepared for a more in-depth conversation or just kind of want a quick down and dirty story, summary, cliff notes.
And then you gotta, what is it? Read the room?
Yeah, read the room.
A bigger change to find a better way. And if we fall, we'll get back up.